So we've got some big changes coming up here with Nebula. The changes are going to go into effect here pretty soon. So I wanted to do a sort of a presentation here where we hit the main changes. Most of my focus is going to be on the more confusing aspects, the changes in the licensing. That's what I'm really going to delve into today. Now, this is an encore presentation of last week. So we did this before last Thursday. We're doing it again for those that weren't able to join or those who just want a second shot at this. I have modified the presentation a bit based on the feedback and the questions we got last time. So hopefully with these changes, it'll be a little bit more clear, a little bit less confusing. There was also one detail I got wrong last week that's been corrected this week as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So the changes take place. Oops. So we can get the animation to work. Take place April 10th and 11th. Now, the original email that went out, I think, said March 29th. This has been pushed back a bit. And the reason I'm giving two dates on there is the official launch date that you will see out there is April 11th. But when that goes into effect here in North America, it will be April 10th. So those are the dates to keep in mind. So April 11th is what you'll see in a lot of the communications. It's what you'll see in the press release. But because of the way international time and dates work, it'll be the 10th here when these changes go live. So the three main things that are changing here with this new version of Nebula, we are finally adding support for the USG Flex series of products. We're adding a new work from home technology called Secure Wi-Fi. And we're doing the first change basically to our licensing program since we launched back in 2016. So for the longest time here, we've had the NSG. If you wanted to manage a gateway through Nebula, you had to use an NSG. So starting with this update and the new firmware that's going to be published for the USG Flex, you will be able to now use the USG Flex. So you'll be able to standardize on one set of gateways for both those customers who want to manage in the cloud and those that you do not. If you buy the UTM version of the USG Flex, it includes the UTM services, and that license works on either standalone or in the cloud. So you can go use it for both. There's not a separate or different license. And we're adding in some new features there, security profile sync and collaborative detection and response. So collaborative detection and response ties in with our access points to increase the security at the access point level. So this is just giving you a breakdown here between the differences between the services offered if you're using it in the standard traditional method or if you're using it in the Nebula cloud. So you'll see here that new security profile sync is a Nebula only feature. Email security is a standalone feature. And then you'll see here the hospitality license only works in standalone mode. And part of that is simply because hospitality features are already baked into Nebula and are independent of the gateway in Nebula. And just showing here how you can renew things. So the other new feature we've got here is this secure Wi-Fi is what we're calling it. And it basically allows you, if you have a customer that's trying to hook up the remote workers, it gives you an alternative to having to give somebody a security appliance that they configure in their home. We often run into problems with that because people's internet connection coming in from, Comcast or whoever it happens to be these days tend to be not just a modem, but a modem with a router and Wi-Fi built in. And it gets confusing and difficult some cases for people to figure out how to properly install a second router device behind that for VPN purposes. Of course, there's always VPN software. There's, again, issues with that as far as the configuration and installation goes, especially if they're bringing their own device. So with secure Wi-Fi, you'll have the ability to essentially send that remote worker a Zyxel access point. They will plug that access point into their existing internet connection and router. It will dial in to the cloud. It will see that it's a remote device, and it will basically download the same configuration that's in the office. So it'll create a secure tunnel from that access point back to your USG Flex. And then they will connect to the same SSID they normally would connect to if they're at the office. They use the same authentication procedures and security as they would have in the office. So it's an easy way to do this sort of remote worker thing, which requires basically no configuration on the part of the end user or the IT staff. You'll also notice here that it mentions the ATP. So the ATP series is coming to Nebula, but we're not there yet. It will probably be much later in the year for the ATP. So for now, it's just USG Flex when we're talking about Nebula. So coming up here, we have another webinar on Tuesday, April 13th. This is being put on by Tri. So Tri is going to be focusing on the USG Flex and the new security features and changes. So if that's something you're interested in, this is the webinar you want to attend. And then at the end of April, on the 29th, I will be doing a What's New in Nebula, where we'll go through all of the little changes that are taking place with this Nebula update. Minor changes to how things are configured and set up, changes to the GUI, stuff like that. So put those on your calendar if you'd like to learn more about some of these changes. So now today's main focus here is License 2.0. So why are we doing this? So let's go through. Why are we now changing the Nebula licensing system? So when we launched back in 2016, it was November 2016 that we launched Nebula. We were the first SMB-focused cloud. At that time, the idea of cloud networking was primarily an enterprise solution. It was Meraki, it was Aerohive, and I believe, I can't remember if HP was in the cloud at that point or not. So we were the first one that was really focused on the SMB space. We beat Meraki Go to market by 2 years, Instant-On by 3 years. And then we've also seen a bunch of lower end vendors come into this space. Netgear has Insight, D-Link has Nucleus, TP-Link's there. So these guys have all joined the space since we launched back in 2016. So the market has changed. We are finally getting around to unifying the Nebula licensing system with our Zywall USG ATP licensing system. So these have been two different platforms that weren't compatible with each other, and it's been a cause of consternation for a long time for people. So these are now finally in the process of getting joined into one unified system. So some of these changes have to be made in order to unify these two platforms. Eventually, hopefully towards the end of the year, we will lead to the ability to do a post-paid billing system. So instead of buying a year license up front per device, you can simply be billed monthly based on what you're actually using. So that's something we're hoping to be able to roll out towards the end of the year. We'll see how that goes. But I think that's pretty exciting for those of you out there that are doing hardware as a service, making it easier for you since you're not charging your customer up front, you're gathering a monthly fee. So this way you can simply pay as a monthly option. Simplification. So, we've offered co-termination since the get-go, and it's probably been the #1 cause of calls, questions, confusion, refunds, people not understanding how that works. You would buy something that would come with a 1-year bundled Pro Pack. You would add it to your org. It would be converted in points and then distributed across all your products. There was a lot of confusion as, I just added a new AP. How come I don't have an extra year? Why am I not seeing that? I'm adding a bunch of new products. How is that going to change the expiration date? So we've gotten rid of co-termination. We've also reduced the number of licenses that you need to purchase. And we'll get a little bit more in depth in here, I think, on the next slide. And then we've also made it easier to move devices between your customers' locations, and more importantly, made it a lot simpler to move licenses and transfer them. So as you upgrade equipment, you can move old equipment to to different customers without any issues. So on the simplification side of things, this is how it is today, right? We've got different licenses at different price points for each different type of product. Going forward, there is going to be just a single 1-year license that applies to any type of Nebula device. So it doesn't matter if it's a gateway or it doesn't matter if it's an AP. You'll also notice we've dropped the price. So you're saving $5 per device per year for access points, $10 per device per year for switches, and you're going to be saving up to $30 for gateways. Going along with this, we are getting rid of the lifetime licenses. There was only a few of you out there that were buying these to begin with. So these are being phased out. They will no longer work. Excuse me. They will no longer be sold going forward. Those of you that already have these deployed, you're fine. So we've renamed the free version of Nebula. It is now being called Base or Base Pack. Pro Pack remains the same. And we've added now a new Plus Pack. So the Plus Pack is an option for those that don't need all the features in Pro Pack, but want a little bit more than what's included with free. So we've taken the most popular options and rolled those into a more affordable Plus Pack. So you can see here, Nebula itself, the base version remains free. Plus Pack is going to run $12 a year. Pro Pack, as we talked about in the previous slide, has dropped down to $29.99 a year. We will also be selling monthly licenses. So this is how we've dealt with co-termination. For those of you that, for management purposes, want everything expiring at roughly the same time, you can use these monthly licenses to adjust expiration dates so everything expires in the same month. And then we do also offer a 2-year license, which gets you a slight discount over buying the single-year license. So here's the roll down of the new distribution of features between the free version, Plus Pack, and Pro Pack. The base version of Nebula is seeing a lot of changes. So logs for the base version, the free version of Nebula here, are dropping to a 24-hour. So this is the performance metrics you see when you log into Nebula, where you can see, data history, usage, things like that. So that's dropping to 24 hours. The back-end diagnostic information that we have access to still remains a week. The number of admin accounts remains the same at 5. The cloud authentication server is dropping to 50 entries that you can use. So this is that cloud database that you could use for user authentication. You could use it for MAC address filtering. So it'll drop to just 50 entries in the free version of Nebula. The other item that's being moved from this is the Portal View. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I've got some screenshots for those of you that don't know what the Portal View is. But that is moving to a new MSP license that we'll talk about a little bit later. The Plus Pack license gets you the week's worth of information stored there in the cloud. Upgrades you to 8 admin accounts, 100 cloud database entries, and it gives you advanced firmware scheduling. Now you can still schedule firmware updates with base. The advanced firmware scheduling is the ability to go in and set different schedules based on device type or based on individual device. Gets you access to our reporting, something that before required the Pro Pack license. So this gets you the ability to automatically generate reports, send those reports to your customers, add your company's branding information to those emails. Gets you access to the network topology view. The Pro Pack license is basically staying the same. There's only 2 changes to the Pro Pack that I can think of off the top of my head. One of them is, like we talked about before, that Portal View is moving from a Nebula license to a MSP license. And then also the ability to brand the GUI and brand the support information, that is moving to that MSP license. You can also see here the Plus Pack gives you email alerts. We don't use it a lot here in North America, but Wi-Fi vouchers for guest access is something that's supported in the Plus Pack. So licensing is done on a per device basis, which is a little bit different than how it was done before. So each device needs to have its own license. And essentially all devices in an organization need to have the same license. So you can't have some devices on the free tier, some devices on the pro tier. It automatically is going to default to the lowest level of stuff. So similar to how we did it before, it's just before we were able to pool everything and distribute it across all the devices. Now it's each individual device needs their own license. So for those of you that have existing Nebula customers deployed that are using Pro Pack, basically nothing's really changing to those organizations. The licensing, basically we're going to take the current date where that org's licenses expire, and we'll automatically convert those over to the new license. So each device will have its own license with that same expiration date. In a couple unique scenarios, you may get an extra month of service that you aren't currently getting, but for the most part, it should remain exactly the same. You are not going to lose anything there. So this is just showing here an example. You've got a Pro or Plus organization. It's set to expire January 2023 in this example, and you've decided to add a new device to this organization that does not have a license. So you will be given a 15-day window from when you add that device to be able to add a license for that device to bring it up to the same license level as the rest of the devices. And similar sort of thing here. Whoops, there we go. So this is showing here, you've got 10 devices, you purchase and activate them today, they're good for a year. In a few months, you decide to add some other devices, which include a bundled Pro license. So now you've got two sets of devices, two different expiration dates. So you can simply renew those when these licenses expire here. If you don't renew them, you'll have, 15-day grace window here to renew them before the whole org drops down to the base version. Or you can simply add in whoops, I guess I didn't have the slides right. You can simply add in also a monthly license for that one to bring everything up to the same expiration date. You don't have to buy the annual licenses. Okay, so for those of you that are using the lifetime licenses, basically all we're doing is we're converting each of the devices you already have over to a individual license, which does not expire. And unlike in the past now, previously with the lifetime license, every device had to have a lifetime license. Since we won't be offering those lifetime licenses anymore, we are now allowing the ability to mix device lifetime license with devices with a standard license. So some frequently asked questions. Can I mix packs in a Nebula organization? The answer is a little bit complicated, but the short version is no. Basically, whatever the lowest tier of licensing is on the devices is what that organization has access to. Theoretically, you can mix Pro Pack and Plus Pack licenses on the same organization, but basically everything will be limited by that Plus Pack license, so you'll only have access to those Plus Pack features. What happens if I add a Nebula Flex Pro device? So you've got buying something that includes 1 year of bundled Pro, but you're adding it to an organization which is using the base version of Nebula. Basically, when you activate that device, it will not activate that Pro license. So you will have that Pro license there, which you could then use for another customer or use on another device, or just hang on to until you're ready to move that customer to a Pro or Plus license. And again, same thing, we covered it before on the other slides, although the slides were a little bit confusing. What happens if I've got a Plus or a Pro Pack organization and I'm adding a device that doesn't have any license? So you'll be given 15 days to add a license for that device. Otherwise, the whole organization drops down into the base version until you have a license for each device. Okay, so MSP Pack. This has been the most confusing part of the new license 2.0. So the MSP Pack is a new license. As the name may imply there, it's looking for those, it's aimed at those that are operating managed service providers, specifically the larger MSP customers is who this is primarily aimed at. While the Nebula Plus and Pro licenses are assigned on a per device basis, this MSP license is locked to an admin user. So if you have an admin account, you add an MSP license, the MSP license applies to every organization that you have access to through that account. So one of the changes here is the MSP Portal View now requires this MSP license in order to be able to see it. Under the MSP menu, there is a Create Organization button. And this is what caused a lot of confusion last week. Um, this is just adding that button to this MSP menu to make it a little bit easier to get to where you create a new organization. It doesn't remove any functionality. It doesn't give you any new functionality. It's just a more convenient placement of the Create Org button. MSP branding. Previously, this required a Pro Pack. It now requires the MSP Pack. And we're adding a new feature here. We're giving you the ability to create teams of admins for your sub-admins. So you can more easily add and manage which admins have access to which of your customers. So instead of having to assign each of your admins to customer B, you can now simply create a team and assign that team to customer B to give them access to it. So it's just an easier way of managing multiple admin accounts and what those people have access to. And then we're adding a new feature called cross-org synchronization, letting you synchronize certain settings between different customers. So this is going to be handy for some of those admin settings that you would expect to change that are more related to your business than to the individual customer's business. So for those of you wondering, what is the MSP Portal View? This is the MSP Portal View. So this is a view that had been in there for everybody, but it was something that you had to click on in order to be able to see it. So it gives you a snapshot view of your customers, their license status, and how many of their devices are online. So without the MSP license, you still have access to these views here. So you still have the ability to see all your customers. You still have the ability to search for customers. You have the ability to create new customers. And you still on the top of the Nebula screen have the drop downs to make it really easy to jump between your customers and their sites. So again, the MSP license is based on the admin account. So generally, even if you have multiple admins in your company, you're only going to have one or two of your admins who need access to these MSP features. This is essentially basically the highest level, admin account that admins the admins type of thing. So again, it's locked to that admin user. So that admin user, every organization that they manage, regardless of whether they're the free, the plus, or the pro version of Nebula, will get access to these MSP features. As you can see here, it's just showing here that you can create these teams and it makes it easier to assign multiple admins to different customers. So some questions. Do I need the MSP Pack to create new organizations? No, you do not. Free version of Nebula, everything else can still create an unlimited number of organizations. For those of you not familiar with Nebula terminology, organizations are basically what you call your customers that you're managing and sites. So there's no limitation there. Do you need the MSP Pack to clone organizations? So when you create an organization right now, as part of the process, you will be given the option to clone organization settings. Now, it doesn't clone the sites and the configurations of the devices. It's just cloning the organization settings. So no, you do not need the MSP Pack. You will still have access to clone organizations, even with the base free tier of Nebula. Does each admin need an MSP license? Yes, if they need to access the MSP features, these specific features that are tied into this MSP license. So for most companies, this is only going to be one or two people. And again, the key MSP features here are access to the portal view, the MSP branding settings. This is which allows you to brand the Nebula interface. When you log into Nebula, so if you're giving your end users the ability to log into Nebula, we would see your logo on the screen. This does not affect branding emails. So if you're using Plus Pack or you're using Pro Pack to generate reports and email them to your customers, those can still be branded with your logo without the MSP license. This new team features are part of the MSP license, and this new cross-org sync feature are part of the MSP license. Now the MSP license, we're looking at a price of around $500 per year for this MSP license. So it's up there a bit, although hopefully with the savings you're seeing on the Pro Pack licenses or using the new base licenses, um, it will pay for itself that way through the savings on the individual device licenses for most of you that would need these MSP type features. So again, guys, we've got some upcoming webinars for those of you looking to learn more about the USG Flex, secure Wi-Fi, the new collaborative security features. This webinar on April 13th is the webinar you want to join. And then Thursday, April 29th, we've got a What's New in Nebula where we'll go through just about every little change, no matter how small, with this new Nebula rollout. So summaries of what we talked about today. April 10th is the date when you must start using these new licenses. If you have some old licenses you haven't yet applied to your customer, we will be able to arrange refunds on those. And you will do it through whoever you purchased them from. So if you've purchased it through Ingram Micro will be able to process the return on those licenses. We will give you an RMA. Call our tech support. We'll verify the licenses haven't been used and help issue that refund for you through there. We've added this new plus tier of service to help compete with some of those low-end, prosumer type cloud services that are out there. So for those of you that are just looking to get email alerts, looking to generate some reports, plus tier is perfect for you. It's very affordable. Going forward, we've gotten rid of individual licenses for device types and moved it to one license that works regardless of device type. And you're saving up to $30 per device on the Pro Pack licenses. We've gotten rid of co-termination. We've gotten rid of points. But to help align expiration dates, if you add devices at different times, we do sell monthly licenses that you can apply to those devices to get everything to expire on the same month. Portal View and the MSP branding, which currently requires a Pro Pack license, will move to the MSP license. And whenever a device expires or you're adding a new device to an organization that needs a license, we give you a 15-day grace period to be able to renew that license or add that license that you need. And so that, folks, that concludes today's webinar. We'll go ahead and open it up to questions and answers. Hopefully these slides were a little bit better than last week, a little less confusing. I think I probably could have still done a little bit better job of explaining some of this, but go ahead and send in your questions and I will do my best here to answer them for you. You can always, of course, reach out directly to me. My email is Sean R, SHAWNR @Zyxel.com. You can reach out to your salespeople, Jacob, David, Jen. They can get you copies of this presentation. They can help answer some of those questions. And then this presentation, I believe, shall be posted to our YouTube page. So we are on YouTube as Zyxel North American channel. Just rolls off the tongue there, doesn't it? But that's where we post all of our webinars. So this has been recorded. This will get posted there within the next 24 hours. Last week's version of this presentation is up there now. So if you want to see that, or if you've got some of your coworkers that you think need to see this, that's the time to do it. James has sent in a question. James is asking, is there a place to obtain SKUs for the new licenses? Unfortunately, at least as things stand right now, we do not have these up yet for sale or for deal registration. They have not gone live in the system. Hopefully they will go live before the actual activation date, but at the very least they will go live when this launches. Hopefully we'll get them loaded in there sooner though. So hopefully that answers the question. The first place that you'll be able to find these is through our marketplace. So the Zyxel marketplace for selling licenses. For those of you that are value-added resellers that are part of our partner program, be sure to sign up for that. That's where you can buy licenses for your customers and you can get your partner discounts through there. So you're not paying full retail, but we do need to get you set up properly with a partner account there. So work with David, work with Jacob if you don't already have that account on Marketplace, and they can get you set up with Marketplace. That's where you can just go to buy licenses online, and then they'll be automatically emailed to you. So that'll be the first place that you can buy the new licenses going forward. And so far, that's the only question we've gotten. I'll stick around for another minute or two if somebody's working on another question, but otherwise, it does seem to have gone a little bit smoother than last week.